listening to The Wizard. This is The Wizard, WZRD Chicago, 88.3 FM. We have with us today Sena Alinco of Progressive Minds. Welcome to Wizard.
Thank you so
Sena?
much. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to your audience.
Tell us a little bit about Progressive Minds.
Okay, so I like to call it the Progressive Mind Show. Okay, that's the name. It's a radio. It is a radio show that started sometime getting to the end of 2017, and it's been on the air for about 2.5 years. So the Progressive Mind Show started when a friend of mine called Black Jesus invited me to a Ghanaian radio station on the north side called WGHC 98.3 FM. And so when I got there, we started talking about community stuff, and then my interest and my passion for community development has always been there. But I never thought of going on air and being a radio show host or anything of the sort. But I always liked people and liked to see people do well, community do well, strive and all that. So when I was being a guest on that radio station for a while on my friend's radio show, which is the Black Jesus that I mentioned. And then so gradually, whilst I kept going there, the extreme desire to impact even on a larger scale started developing. And so I thought of a name for it. Now, mind you, I've never been to a journalism school or I'm not a journalist. And so, but the show that I was on, we were speaking local dialect. And so I thought, how can I reach the bigger community in the way that I want to? So, and I couldn't do that by speaking local dialect. And so I thought of a show that, of course, I can communicate in English so it can benefit more people. So I came up with a name, Progressive Minds, because that's who I am. That's how I like to think about life. That's how I like to think about people. That's how I like to think about community. And so I thought it were two things that came to mind: positive vibes or progressive minds. But then I decided on Progressive Minds, and then of course the radio show too. So I added a show to it. So it is the Progressive Mind Show.
How did you start in community advocacy, and how did that lead up to Progressive Minds Show?
Right. So I have always been, like I said, doing that even when I was in Ghana. I'm originally from Ghana, and for about 7 to 8 years, when I completed high school back home, a friend of mine who's called Pucho, we started doing what we call Save the Dance. Save the Dance is the name of the I would say annual event, but the content is we would bring almost all the high schools in Ghana and engage them in a dancing competition. Now we were using that as a platform to promote health awareness, such as staying away from HIV, and then keeping the environment clean to prevent malaria, because that is a prevalent health situation back in Ghana. And so we were doing that every year, and the goal again was to sensitize the youth, about the dangers of HIV and staying away from it, and then of course malaria, as I said, and also giving
Just curious. I know that you're passionate about the work. Did you have any numbers about what the positive effects of your work, like the deaths and spread of malaria, HIV, before versus after you started your work?
Good question. Now we did it because I remind you we were young. We were in our teens, and I was more passionate about the work, and we thought it was fun for the kids, for the students, and secondly, we thought it was very educational. Again, the purpose of the Save the Dance is what we were mainly concerned about. So we were not paying attention to the data, even though we're working with the government health institutions, some of the government health institutions. We were not going to them to kind of track data. And another thing is, it's always difficult tracking data or getting data in third world countries. We don't. It's difficult, and it's difficult in the first place to track that. And secondly, we were not even thinking about that. We were just about the work. even as young as we were then. And so, yes, I cannot give you numbers,
That's
but I can tell you that if you call Ghana now and you ask Officer to dance, it's one of the biggest events. And I know that the numbers kept increasing year after year
So you initiated it
in terms
after
of
you,
people, in terms of participation.
and you have people actually continuing it for you.
Yeah, I mean, a friend of mine, it was just the two of us. His name is, he actually has a radio show now on, it's called Hits FM. It's on Hits FM in Ghana, Accra, one of the biggest radio stations. And he is the one, he's still running that event. So it was just the two of us. And so when I migrated here, of course, he kept going here. So it's still long going, basically, yeah.
So from that to what?
So from there, then I migrated here. Somewhere 2008. Came to do my masters. After completing my bachelor's in Ghana, I decided I always thought to enhance and broaden my scope and my horizon about the world. And the best place I felt to do that is the U.S. So I always wished to come to the U.S. After spending all my life in Ghana and going to school and everything, I wanted to get a higher education and higher perspective to life. And I always dreamt of doing that in the U.S. And so when the opportunity came for me to migrate here, of course, I came and did my MBA, and then I went on to work, got married, and got divorced, and all that. But yeah, I have enjoyed the transition coming from Ghana here. Of course, the cultural shock, the learning curve, the processes, and even the procedures, how things are done, your systems, and how the efficacy of the systems here. I feel like it has given me a lot of experience, a lot of impact, a lot of exposure to, I would say, a more efficient way and proper way of developing communities, helping people, and developing people even better than what I used to do back home.
How did you start community advocacy in the States then?
So in the States, I immediately got involved with a church. There's a church in Naperville called Calvary. So I started attending that church, and at Calvary, I got involved with the youth ministry, and so it's called I think the next something next. I've forgotten the actual name, but that's led by Pastor Steve. Then I don't know if it's still the youth pastor. But Calvary in Naperville is where my youth advocacy or my community advocacy started actually, because now I'm a Christian, so I would rather want to be in the main auditorium, listen to the Word of God, but my passion for people, and again, the youth and community, so it kind of drove me unknowingly I found myself at the youth section where I was missing the word and the message every Sunday at the main auditorium because I had to be with the kids and help them out and teach them the Word of God and whatnot. And so even though I was missing out on that, I was getting joy by helping out with the kids. We had a program called they have a program with the youth called Breakaway. So we would take them to, let's say, Wisconsin and for camping and help them. Be with them while they learn the Word of God and learn what they call some. They would have games, right? They would have games. They would have certain community projects and whatnot. Sometimes we would take the youth to the street. We'll go out into the communities and do what we call street cleaning, like community cleaning. So we'll go on the streets and pick up litters and make sure that we're keeping the community clean and whatnot. So we engage the youth in these types of community activities.
That was with the ministry, right?
That was with the ministry.
Okay, then, and then how did you set off on your own? What did you find in the ministry that was lacking so that you could step in to work on your own?
Right. So the ministry was fine. There was nothing wrong with it, but I had to move to the city. So so I can be close to school. So whilst I was in school, whilst I was in grad school,
where?
Grad school, Argos University.
Okay.
And so I later on after school I joined Assemblies of God Church, and it's right here actually down the street in this community. And there I started. Before then, I'm a soccer fanatic, right? I love soccer, and so I would kind of trying to organize my community to engage in soccer and sports activities. But then I took it to the next level where I was organizing the youth in my church and some of the youth in the community to form a soccer team. So we call it Men of Hope soccer team. That is a soccer team that I created at Christ Center of Hope Assemblies of God Church. And so this Men of Hope soccer team consisted of some of the youth in the church and of course youth in the community in general. The goal was to use soccer to get the youth together and to also inculcate in them the values of sharing, teamwork, and also intercultural, and building that intercultural relationship, sensitizing them of the diverse community that we live in. So that our team did not, sometimes we would play soccer games or matches and we would have all type of races in the team. So it wasn't just a Ghanaian or an African team. We would have everybody from the walks of life, Caucasian, Asians, Indians, in that team playing other teams, So it went on.
Where did those other teams come from? Also from churches,
Yes,
community?
yes.
Or what?
Sometimes some of them were from churches. We had Pentecost church, we have Methodist church, we have Presby church, and then sometimes we would have other community soccer teams who do not necessarily belong to a church. And some of these games would happen at Wilson and Lakeshore Soccer Turf. Sometimes we would have it by Stony Island and 61st.
Who was in charge of coordinating who plays against whom?
Oh, so it was me. There was a guy. His name is Ebenezer Ankra. He was at Pentecost. He still he was at Pentecost here in Chicago. He lived in Chicago, but he moved his family to Texas. And there's another guy called forgot his name. I think is it Eric or.
How did you? What was the next step then after all these soccer
games? Yeah. So after the soccer games matches evolved. Sometimes we'll go to Ohio, and play other soccer teams there. So after that, I think I did other community engagement, like organize health awareness, events.
So you basically you work in Ghana then?
No, here.
I know that. Yes, I know. I know that you started the health.
Yeah, I continued. Yeah, I was doing that kind of. I was doing some type of health, community health promotions here as well when I came here. In addition to the soccer thing, right? Because again, anything that gave me the chance to be in the community, where I involved myself in it, and then so I found myself more towards the soccer and the sports thing. And then health as well. Sometimes the Ghana National Council here in Chicago would organize health events, health awareness events, and I would be there to support. Sometimes I'll organize some myself.
Did you find any difficulty in community involvement in the sports, in soccer, and in your health events?
Yeah, sometimes it's gathering people. Because of the work schedule, it's far easier in Ghana. But here, if you were working, you were a student. And sometimes, so you have to juggle between all of that. So getting people, and then because we are very scattered, some people on the north, south, east, and suburb, and all that. So the difficulty is getting people to be at the games and at the events on time. So you have to coordinate everybody, and you have to call them. Sometimes, remind you, some of the participants are youth and they don't drive. So you have to literally go to their homes and pick about 3 or 4 people from different locations. And then another difficulty is keeping the kids that they used to play, because sometimes after playing they take the kids home instead of living it with us. So we were losing kids, and you have to replace them with your own money. And mind you, we weren't getting financial support. This was done, everything was done through. It was totally voluntary. So I had to pay for everything that needed to be taken care of out of pocket. And then the Church of Pentecost was also supporting by giving some donations for some of the things that we're doing. So the difficulty is getting the people to participate. Yes.
What about practice? Because you can just jump into the game and play.
Yes, that's another difficult thing. But we were persistent. So I strategically put practice on Sundays. Usually, most of us go to church on Sunday. So and after church is easy.
What are the best times on Sunday, and what are the best times for the games?
Right after, let's say between 2 to 5 p.m. That's when I discovered that was the best time to get the youth and get people to play. I'm also
You mean on Sunday for the practice?
yes,
or?
for the practice, and then even for the games, we did play on Sundays
Okay.
because it was major. The major tournaments that we play were on Saturdays. Yeah, I take that back. On Saturdays because you know we put the word out there that on this day, so the kids they save the date. You know, so Saturday we meet and then like we spend the whole day there. There are trophies. There's food. You know, and so major game tournaments were played on Saturdays, but sometimes practice were mainly done on Sundays, and then some of the tournaments we would play on Sundays, but my major tournaments were on Saturdays.
Okay. So what was your next step after the soccer and the health events? How did your community advocacy progress?
Right. So yeah, in course of time. Again, due to what I do and how I relate to people, as I mentioned, my friend Black Jesus called me one time that there was a radio station that had opened on the north side. So I went there and I, fell in love with it. It was at the time. He called me and said, "Hey, there's this Ghanaian radio station that has that WGAC." So I went there, like I said, discovered, and I realized that it was a great project. So I fell in love with it. I was a guest on his show. We had a great show in the Ga dialect. It's a local tribe in Ghana. It's a tribe in Ghana.
Okay. So it wasn't in English?
It wasn't. Yes, my second. I'll say the first 3 weeks or month, it wasn't in English. I was a guest speaking in a Ghana language. A Ghana language is one of the dialects. Dialect I would say in Ghana. Yeah, and so it was. And then there are communities here who speak the dialect. So yeah, we had fun with it.
How far is the audience reach for WGHC?
WGHC is 100 by 100. But it also streams online. So it doesn't matter where you are. People from Africa, here in the diaspora, Ghanaians in the diaspora, we were reaching out to them, and so typically Ghanaians in the diaspora and also in Ghana.
Are the shows archived? Could the listeners access those shows?
Yes, when we started, we weren't archiving so the Akaka show, which is the Ghana show, it wasn't necessarily archived at the time. But when I started the Progressive Mind show, mind you, I told you that I felt like I had more to give than because I was a guest. But then something in me, something that had been in me for a long time started developing, and I feel like if I have the mic, I think I can have a bigger effect than speaking the local dialect to a certain group of people from Ghana. And so it sparked the interest, of course, and again I started thinking about the name to give to it, but I decided to give it the Progressive Minds because I feel like this is who I am, and I want to impact the community the way I think, and I also want to be able to attract like-minded people who are progressive in their thinking and who have positive attitudes. Because for me, I wanted to spark positive attitudes in people when I get on the air. That was my vision. And so I told God that if I have to go on air, if I have to do this show, my prayer is that, or my prayer and my goal is that I want at least a person or one or two individuals' minds and hearts to be changed positively after I get off air. So that has been my focus.
Do you have any numbers at all, or any feedback from the audience about how you have changed their lives?
Oh yes. So we even had students listening to it. I had a professor from Kennedy King who had her class listen to my show as their coursework. So they will listen, and the feedback was tremendous because some of the students actually came to intern at the end of the day with me, and others would call me later and tell me how their lives had changed because prior to listening to the show, some of the students had a timid attitude due to their history and whatnot, and my show actually gave them the confidence to speak and to become more aware of themselves, to become more to discover their power and their identity. So the show gave them that, and the professor was also giving me feedback on how the show has changed her class.
When you say that the students have became more confident in speaking up.
Yeah.
What do you know? What topics they focused on?
Yeah, it was social. I would say social studies and African American history and African history, and I think more. And then it was communication too, something around communication.
I meant when the students started having the courage to speak up in their own ways.
Yeah.
What did they usually speak out about?
What would they like before they?
Yes. After listening to your show, and they became more confident
Oh,
in
yes.
speaking.
Yeah, they started advocating more for their communities,
Okay.
and then standing up more for themselves, speaking their mind. You know, again, some of these kids had very, I would say, um, hard upbringing, and so the what you call it the trauma that they go through due to their circumstances, you know. And I had that problem too. Before I came to America, I had issues speaking my mind, and you know, talking about things that I care about because of my upbringing, you know.
Okay, then for you, what was the turning point that you felt that you could speak up for yourself?
America. I mean, just being America, just being in the country and learning that you don't have to be afraid of what you think and how you feel. And you see, the system gives you the confidence to speak your mind. That it's okay, that you can speak your mind, and whatever you have in your head, it's not dumb, it's not stupid. That everybody has something that they can contribute positively to their society. And so you don't even have to go to school to learn that. Once you come into the country and you live in it for a while, you learn that the system is just designed that way. You see what I'm saying?